how Nigeria, Ghana, and Sudan were divided by colonial borders. The untold story. What if the borders of your country were drawn by people who never lived there, never spoke your language, and never cared about your future? That's the story of Africa today. We're diving deep into how colonial powers carved out Nigeria, Ghana, and Sudan with straight lines that cut through tribes, families, and entire civilizations. Stay till the end, because you'll see how these artificial borders still shape conflict, culture, and identity today. And tell me in the comments, do you think Africa should ever redraw her borders? It all began in 1884, in a city far away from Africa. European powers met in Berlin, led by Otto von Bismarck of Germany. Their mission? Not to develop Africa, but to divide it. No African leader was invited. No African voice was heard. Lines were drawn on maps not along rivers or mountains, but across kingdoms, tribes, and sacred lands. By the end of the conference, Africa had been cut into 50 territories, controlled by Britain, France, Germany, Portugal, and others. The new map of Africa was like a jigsaw puzzle forced together, and its pieces still don't fit today. Let's start with Nigeria. Before colonization, the land was home to powerful civilizations, the Hausa and Fulani caliphates in the north, the Yoruba kingdoms in the west, and the Igbo communities asterisk in the east. But when the British arrived, they saw not nations, but resources. In 1914, they merged the northern and southern protectorates, two regions that had little in common, into one entity they called Nigeria. That single act created deep divisions that still echo today in politics, religion, and identity. A land that could have been three or more nations was forced into one. Do you think Nigeria would be more peaceful if it had remained separate? Comment below. From the Ashanti Empire to the Gold Coast. Now to Ghana, once known as the Gold Coast. Long before the British arrived, this region had powerful and organized states, especially the Ashanti Empire, which controlled trade and defended its sovereignty fiercely. But when Europeans discovered the land's gold and resources, everything changed. The British fought multiple wars against the Ashanti, finally breaking their resistance by the early 1900s. Borders were drawn that ignored the old trade routes, tribes, and spiritual territories. When Ghana gained independence in 1957, it became the first sub-Saharan African country to break free from colonial rule. Yet even today, its borders set by the British separate families in Togo, Côte d'Ivoire, and Burkina Faso, who share the same ancestors and languages. Sudan, one country, two worlds. Then comes Sudan, perhaps the clearest example of how colonial borders can divide a nation forever. Under British Egyptian rule, Sudan was treated as two separate regions, the Arab Muslim North and the African Christian South. When independence came in 1956, these two worlds were merged despite having entirely different religions, cultures, and histories. What followed were decades of civil war, ending with South Sudan's independence in 2011, Africa's newest country. Even today, both nations struggle with the consequences of those colonial lines. Lines that were never meant to unite, only to control. The bigger picture, one continent, many divisions. Nigeria, Ghana, Sudan. Different stories, one pattern. Artificial borders created by outsiders. Across Africa, over 10,000 ethnic groups were forced into just 54 countries. The borders cut through ancestral lands, trade routes, and even families. Imagine visiting your cousin and needing a passport because a European ruler drew a line between your villages 140 years ago. These borders didn't just separate people, they created new identities and often new tensions. From Nigeria's Biafran War to Sudan's civil conflict, the past keeps repeating itself. The future of African unity. So the question is, can Africa truly unite with borders built to divide her? Some say the future lies in the African Union, open trade zones, and shared development. Others believe unity must begin from the heart, respecting our differences, but standing as one people. The scars of colonization may run deep, but Africa's spirit is deeper. We can't erase the borders, but we can rise above them. Tell me in the comments, should Africa one day redraw her borders? Or should we focus on unity beyond geography? Because the map of Africa may have been drawn in Europe, but its future will be written by Africans. I hope I did not bore you much with the history of these African Western states. But it is necessary to know how it all started and how the birth of the division was created. This is not to blame or accuse the colonials, but it is important for Africans and her children to know about how the history of their nation were formed and created. Perhaps the Berlin decision might be regrettable and selfish, but we are all one. Together in unity, divided we all fall. Follow me on more history events and its origin